What's up, guys? Welcome to the Outer Nexus. Tonight, we will be discussing the decision for the U.S. Space Force to be moved to Huntsville, Alabama, and the interesting history around anti-gravitic research in and around Huntsville, Alabama, and the mysterious death of Amy Eskridge. This is going to be a UFO episode. But first, it looks like we do have a UFO whistleblower hearing happening sometime next week. Hold on, let me share this. Next UAP disclosure hearing set as lawmakers consider new whistleblower protections. So Tim Burchett and Annapolina Luna are gonna be bringing out more people. I think it's 4 people this time. Let me see. Who is it? Yeah, so including the whistleblowers that they'll be presenting is Jeffrey Nusatelli and Dylan Borland and George Knapp also. And also, I think Chief Alex Wiggins, a Navy chief. They are going to be presenting their stories. I believe Jeffrey Nusatelli has a story about a giant red UFO the size of a football field that appeared over Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. George Knapp, I think he'll be talking about the documentation that he got from the Russian government after the collapse of the Cold War. So that will actually be pretty interesting to see if he presents that before Congress. I think Chief Wiggins, I forget exactly what he saw. But that will be interesting in its own way, and they will also be presenting the UAPDA, the Disclosure Act, to see if they can pass this thing. I think they introduced it in 2023. I forget which year. And basically, this UAPDA act by Congress would force defense contractors to turn over any type of advanced technology within this scope, and they actually use terminology like discs and saucers and things like that, anti-gravitic devices, so on and so forth. And recently, the New York University Journal of Law, I think that's the name of it, came out with an analysis if the UAPDA passes. And I just want to read its conclusion. I thought it was pretty interesting. So its conclusion is the UAPDA serves to acclimate the public to the possibility that known human civilization may not be the sole or dominant actor present on the planet. By its mere introduction, the UAPDA sponsors have generated a sea change in public awareness about UAPs and bolstered the credibility of proponents for the non-human hypothesis. It is clear from the NDAA conference that the drafters, co-sponsors, and supporters of the UAPDA face strong opposition will from many camps should they continue to advocate for its prescribed approach. The results of this episode have been favorable for the pro-disclosure camp. Congress has gained significant leverage vis-a-vis the executive branch and demonstrated its ability to play budgetary hardball, if not permitted greater access to UAP-related programs. Over time, as Congress learns more information, the public will invariably hear some portion of it as well. As more information enters the public discourse regarding UAP, supporters of disclosure may find an increasingly favorable political climate conducive to reintroducing elements of the UAPDA. In an interview in May 2024, Senator Rounds remarked that there is some work being done on a new version of the UAPDA to be introduced in the near future. On July 11th, Senator Rounds reintroduced the UAPDA as an amendment to the FY25 NDAA, with most of the original language that had been struck from subtitle C-204. Included in the proposed draft is a more explicit list of the government agencies that would be required to provide information regarding UAP-related records. The language will likely be negotiated significantly over the coming months. Finally, as this note has attempted to demonstrate, there are many consequential policy questions waiting to be addressed if and when UAPs are accepted as a topic for serious consideration. Questions range from inquiries into the nature of reality and the impact on mainstream worldviews to the strategic challenges of how to organize a whole of society response to a mass UAP encounter. This also includes the more prosaic consideration of how to process and adjudicate potentially unconstitutional and illegal activity by the executive branch over several decades. If the allegations intimated by the UAPDA's drafters are confirmed true, the American public and the world at large will be challenged to update their worldviews in ways that require ideas and concepts not yet widespread in mainstream society. The aftermath of that ontological shift is difficult to predict or manage, and it could result in psychological turbulence or discomfort for many. As with climate change, pandemic risks, or the advent of nuclear weaponry, this topic is one with the potential to impact all aspects of human life, including personal beliefs about spirituality, religion, and the meaning of life. But if humanity's response to recent global challenges is predictive at all, then our demonstrated resilience and adaptability may grant us hope for the future ahead. So that's kind of dramatic. That's their take on it. And while all of that is happening, rumors are swirling about, once again, that these defense contractors have this technology. They have EG&G, Lockheed Martin, Bechtel, Battelle Memorial, SAIC, and Amentum. Amentum's an interesting one. That was brought up by UFO Gerb a bit ago. And apparently they are all in the Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama, where they are moving Space Force up at it. This is like a rumor, I'm guessing. Now let's listen to what Joe Rogan has to say. He just had Tim Dillon on, and they were talking about the subject. I thought it was pretty interesting how far this particular perspective is going.
Well, yeah, and it seems there's more interest now in the UAP phenomenon than there's ever been.
There's a lot of that, but I also think that's because, look, if you've been in charge of back engineering spaceships, so you've been in charge of lying to Congress and misappropriating funds in order to have the amount of money that you would need to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And then through all of this, you've achieved substantial gains in whether it's fiber optics or whatever the technology that you've back engineered, where you figured out how to make something that's like completely spectacular. You're in a situation where as transparency becomes more and more of the norm, like one of the things that's going to happen with AI and then most certainly with quantum computing is all decryption, all encryption, all hiding, all that stuff goes away. It becomes a real problem with resources because almost all money is just ones and zeros. So like who's got access to it, who does, it's going to be nuts. Like solving all that's going to be nuts, but also hiding information is going to be virtually impossible. And if there's people that know eventually at one point in time, they're going to have to pay the toll.
Right.
Like something. Yeah. So we've got to get ahead of this.
Yes.
And the best way to get ahead of this is like this Age of Disclosure documentary. One of the things that all these spooks, all these like former, deep state guys who are now whistleblowers. I'm doing air quotes with my fingers for people who are just listening. They all talk about amnesty. This is the secret to all this stuff. The secret to the only way you're going to be able to do all this is you got to give amnesty for all the people that committed all these crimes, because the general public needs to know that this stuff exists.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's him, or those two, I should say. I thought that was interesting that this conceptually is kind of going to the highest levels of mainstream media, you could say, at this point, that these contractors have this technology, and not only do they have this technology, but maybe they should be granted amnesty so they could just come out with it and say it and be done with it. And, you know, it's weird how some people are reacting to this, and just how maybe Streisand effect isn't the right term for it, but it seems like there's people trying to carry water for defense contractors too, like this subject, which is mostly not talked about by Max Afterburner, who's a fighter pilot YouTuber. He's very famous for being that. In this, he defends Lockheed a little bit, not that much, but a little bit. But it's interesting.
I don't really think he's defending Lockheed.
Well, and that's the thing. Well,
And then there's investigative journalist Ross Coulthard. He's been yelling from the rooftops that Tic Tac is categorically Lockheed Martin technology. He cites 2 independent aerospace insiders saying it's reverse engineered from earlier finds. Coulthard's podcast rants about how we're being lied to at the highest levels in the White House, with the national security state covering it up. But there's no hard documents, no high-resolution imagery, no high-resolution video. So at this point, I'm not saying he's wrong, but it seems like the source is trust me, bro. And then there's David Grush. He's a former U.S. intelligence official and Air Force veteran. He served in key roles within the National Reconnaissance Office and an Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. He alleged that there's U.S. government programs that involve the retrieval and reverse engineering of non-human spacecraft and non-human intelligence by defense contractors. Grush claimed that companies like Lockheed have been hiding multi-decade programs with exotic tech from crashed UFOs, stuff that could rewrite physics. And I think one of his big claims was that this technology has only been given to one company or maybe a couple companies, when it should be let out to more companies being able to bid on reverse engineering it. That's tricky though, because when it comes to this type of technology, as an officer in the Air Force, what I saw was there's so many segmented programs, and that's actually a good thing because it could keep a spy from Russia or China who might get access to some of the US vaults, that might keep them from actually getting all of the information on these systems, and maybe having it segmented into one contractor, at least to start, and then dividing it up among them after the technology has been properly classified. Maybe that is a strategy to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. But also, yeah.
So that in particular, what he said, that like it was actually how he said it. It makes me wonder if that was one of the first times that he's really thought about that kind of classification process and what it does to inhibit technology. Because number one, and I'm not trying to bash on him or anything, it's just like genuinely, it seems like this may have been the first time he's considered that this happens in the militaries, that, you know, technology is so compartmentalized that maybe exotic technology is developed and it could actually be helpful. But, you know, his angle is the defense that, you know, this kind of compartmentalization helps with national security. But, like, I don't know. When you think about it, I don't know. It feels like that might have been one of the first times he's thought about that process. What do you think?
It could have been.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, not many people are just sitting on the basis of,
Yeah.
you know, what if the government is,
Yeah.
you know, developing these technologies?
Right.
I mean, we think about our own technologies for sure, but not
Yeah.
like reverse engineering other technologies.
Yeah.
So it may have been one of the first times he had to, you know, to look at it that way.
Yeah.
But this type of government attitude towards, you know, making things, you know, harder to see,
Yeah.
is not new.
Yeah.
Like, we've
for
been
sure.
classifying things for, you know, ever.
Yeah.
And it can be a good thing, but
Yeah.
like he's saying, it's how we're doing it now.
Mm.
And then on top of it, when you have adversaries
Mhm.
that are able to we put in more money than everybody. Doesn't mean we're putting in more resources
Yeah.
than everybody.
That's a big difference.
Money is a resource,
Yeah.
and we put in way more than anyone else.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you can have a country like, you know, classifying something and basically having a kill order on everybody, you know, around it, like, if you even attempt, like, if you sneeze in the wrong way and it could be interpreted that you're talking about your work, that's it for you.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, you could have a bunch of people, you know, from China working on stuff like this. I'm just going to say it's China.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like they have more people that they can throw at it.
Yeah.
not that we don't have more people, but we've, like you said, we've tightened it so much that only so many people actually do get access to it.
Right.
Whereas they probably have a huge group of people that have access to most things.
Yeah.
With like I said, a very strict talk about it even a little bit. And
No, yeah.
you know,
That's true. In China, they probably still just off
and
a
when,
lot of their people.
and when you're looking for innovation,
Yeah.
which is what you're looking for when you're back engineering something,
Mm.
because you're looking for that eureka moment, like, we figured it out, let's integrate it into something. It's not always like your top guy.
Yeah.
It's how many people can you get eyes on this thing so that each one can put it through the process, and then you're hoping for one of them to, got it. And I think other countries are doing that better.
Currently, I would agree with that, especially on the fusion side of things. But as an update on the Jeffrey Epstein files, this time it's not the Jeffrey Epstein files they're not going to release. It is the NASA James Webb classified files. Apparently, NASA cites an FOIA exemption to withhold James Webb data, so you can't see it from like 2021 to 2024.
Which,
Yeah.
if you've watched the movie, like The Martian,
Yeah.
they make it very clear
Yeah.
that is a public agency
Yeah.
with public assets.
Yeah.
Meaning, like they were saying, it's like 24 hours after they find something,
Mm.
they have to release it to the public.
Yeah. So that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And just to throw in Jeffrey Epstein somehow into this, back in 2012, he held a conference of Nobel laureates to try to define gravity. So that's some meat to chew on for a little while. All right, let's get into our main article here. Trump is moving Space Command to Huntsville, Alabama, to reward the military-industrial complex for election manipulation, and Amy Eskridge, Werner von Braun, Operation Paperclip, and the Redstone Arsenal. So this is written by Escape Velocity on Medium. It might be a little opinionated. It might even have some things in it that we disagree with, but I think it'll be a good article covering all this crazy stuff involving Huntsville. Okay, my research partner and I have put everything we have into the 1933 Magenta Italy story and the timeline events involving those players who then built the Bush family empire and the CIA. So he has an article about that. That one's really good too. So with all the weirdness around Trump, his health issues, and the speculation regarding his disappearance in the Epstein files pressure cooker saga, he and J.D. Vance showing up after he'd not been credibly seen in nearly a week to hold a press conference announcing that he would be moving Space Command from Colorado Springs to Huntsville, Alabama, seems confusing to say the least. So let's try to unpack what this announcement possibly means and the history of Huntsville, Alabama, and the UAP topic. Huntsville, Alabama, known for decades as Rocket City, was born out of Operation Paperclip, Nazi rocket scientists led by Werner von Braun. After going back over this, it appears much of the MIC is run out of here, and they helped steal the election for Trump. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's what he wrote here, who just rewarded them by announcing his move of Space Command from Colorado Springs to Huntsville. Huntsville was set up to house the rocket program later incorporated by NASA, run by Operation Paperclip Nazis. Paperclip was put into motion by Alan Dulles, who helped retrieve the 1933 Magenta Italy craft while in the OSS and later ran the CIA. Here's Ross Coulthart talking at the 2024 Scientific Coalition for UAP, which was held in Huntsville, Alabama, about anti-gravity research. You could watch that if you want on YouTube. Operation Paperclip was a secret United States intelligence program in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians were taken from former Nazi Germany to the U.S. for government employment after the end of World War II in Europe between 1945 and 1959. Several were confirmed to be former members of the Nazi Party, including the SS or the SA. The effort began in earnest in 1945 as the Allies advanced into Germany and discovered a wealth of scientific talent and advanced research that had contributed to Germany's wartime technological advancements. The U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff officially established Operation Overcast. Operations Overcast and Paperclip were related, and the terms were often used interchangeably. On July 20th, 1945, with the dual aims of leveraging German expertise for the ongoing war effort against Japan and to bolster U.S. post-war military research, the operation conducted by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency was largely actioned by special agents of the U.S. Army's Counterintelligence Corps. Many selected scientists were involved in the Nazi rocket program, aviation, or chemical biological warfare. The Soviet Union in the following year conducted a similar program called Operation Osoaviakhim that emphasized many of the same fields of research. The operation, characterized by the recruitment of German specialists and their families, relocated more than 1,600 experts to the U.S. It has been valued at U.S. $10 billion in patents and industrial processes. Recruits included such notable figures as Wernher von Braun, leading rocket scientists. These recruited were instrumental in the development of the U.S. space program and military technology during the Cold War. Despite its contributions to American scientific advances, Operation Paperclip has been controversial because of the Nazi affiliations of many recruits and the ethics of assimilating individuals associated with war crimes into American society. The operation was not solely focused on rocketry. Efforts were directed towards synthetic fuels, medicine, and other fields of research. Notable advances in aeronautics fostered rocket and spaceflight technologies pivotal in the space race. The operation played a crucial role in the establishment of NASA and the success of the Apollo missions. Operation Paperclip was part of a broader strategy by the U.S. to harness German scientific talent in the face of emerging Cold War tensions and ensuring this expertise did not fall into the hands of the Soviet Union or other nations. The operation's legacy has remained controversial in subsequent decades. So this article has an enormous amount of information about Operation Paperclip that you can read yourself if you want. We are going to skip right to modern day with Trump moving Space Command to Huntsville. Basically, after the war in Germany, they moved the Nazis over to Huntsville. Wernher von Braun, he developed the V2, all that stuff. And now here we are in modern day. Let's see. Trump stated that 4 different groups of experts says Huntsville is the best location and that the people of Alabama fought harder for it.
So I want to thank you all for being here for this important announcement. 7 years in the making. As you know, this has been going on for a long period of time. And I am thrilled to report that the U.S. Space Command headquarters will move to the beautiful locale of a place called Huntsville, Alabama, forever to be known from this point forward as Rocket City. Okay, so Huntsville, Alabama, we love Alabama. I only won it by about 47 points. I don't think that influenced my decision though, right? That didn't, right? But we had a lot of competition for this, and Alabama's getting it, Huntsville in particular. So congratulations, everybody. Katie, congratulations. This will result in more than 30,000 Alabama jobs and probably much more than that, and hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. And that's billions, because it can't be millions. It's billions and billions of dollars. Most importantly, this decision will help America defend and dominate the high frontier, as they call it.
Okay. Vance's comments.
Lobbied the president hard to put it in Ohio, but he said these people behind us, these Alabamas, are just too powerful and too persuasive. And so it's in Alabama, but as Tommy said, this is exactly the right place for Space Force and Space Command. I think Americans ought to appreciate the fact that you can't win the battle of the future unless you control the skies. The cyber security, the communications, the entire infrastructure of the battle in the 21st century will be in space. So it was a visionary move in the first administration for the president to set up Space Force. And I think an equally visionary move to make sure that Space Force is right where it should be in Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you, sir.
So there's that. And then this author ties in J.D. Vance possibly visited Italy to be briefed on the 1933 Magenta crash. And they also tie in the idea that perhaps Trump is mad at Colorado for using mail-in
I
voting.
will say I want to thank Colorado. The problem I have with Colorado, one of the big problems, they do mail-in voting. They went to all mail-in voting. So they have automatically crooked elections. And we can't have that. When a state is for mail-in voting, that means they want dishonest elections because that's what that means. So that played a big factor also.
I don't know how accurate that is, though. Let's see. So he gets into a whole thing about electronic voting machines, things like that. But then we get into one of the main aspects of this article that is going around in UFO circles right now. Because part of Operation Paperclip, if you've ever been into UFOs and have watched the History Channel, then you might be aware that part of the myth, the legend, is that the Germans were working on anti-gravity back in the 40s, and there's this device called Die Glocke, or Die Glocke or something, and apparently they have footage of this thing floating around in a garage. And apparently these Germans were working on anti-gravity in Huntsville, and this is what Amy Eskridge said, who was a PhD scientist who was investigating anti-gravity back in the early 2010s, late 2000s, something like that. And this is what she had to say.
Disclosure is going to come out of Huntsville, Alabama, out of Redstone Arsenal. Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama is the biggest fucking deal that you've never heard of. It's the biggest fucking deal that you have never heard of. Because the fact is that we have deep and wide, extensive credibility that no one knows about because you're not supposed to know about it because it's in Alabama, it's obscure. You're not supposed to know about it. That's the point.
People that
don't
know what Huntsville is. Amy
People
showed
know what Huntsville is? Is that what you're saying? People don't know what Huntsville is. Huntsville is the biggest fucking deal on the planet that you have never heard of. Now, like, Huntsville is the Silicon Valley of government national security technology and intelligence community technology and aerospace technology. Huntsville is like the hub. Like, we are number 3 on the first strike launch list. If first strike happens, 3 targets, Huntsville will be one of them. Alabama. This is Alabama dude in the deep south. We're in the top 3 first strike. We're in the top 3 first strike because you haven't heard of us. That's why. It's on purpose. I started the Institute for one reason. The Institute. I started it as a public-facing persona to disclose anti-gravity technology through, because I told Mark this. If you stick your neck out in public, at least someone notices if your head gets chopped off. If you stick your neck out in private, fuck you. They will bury you. They will burn down your house while you're sleeping in your bed, and it won't even make the news.
So, and let's see. Here's Amy's obituary. She died as David Grush was bringing forward 40-plus witnesses forward to talk about exotic research being done and that threat that individuals had been under, including himself. So let's see here. There's her obituary right there. 1987 to 2022. Okay, Amy Eskridge. A brilliant mind left us when Amy Catherine Eskridge went to her eternal rest in the Lord on Saturday, June 11th, 2022. At just age 34, Amy already had a beautiful vision for life and the cosmos. She had a genius for science and questioned the conventional wisdom on everything from the universe to the nanoparticles of the atom. She was also an astute entrepreneur as chairwoman and president of the Institute for Exotic Science in Huntsville, Alabama, which she co-founded. Amy's passion for space grew from childhood in the Rocket City. After her graduation from UAH with a double major in chemistry and biology, she became an interdisciplinarian and a master of electrical engineering, chemistry, physics, genetic engineering, and nanotechnology. Wow. Amy is survived by her parents, Kathleen and Richard Eskridge, brothers Matt and Michael Eskridge, Victoria now. Amy was preceded in death by her grandparents, Margaret and Russell Vance, and Marcella and Charles Eskridge. Amy lived a full life full of passion and wondered for the cosmos, and she was deeply loved by all who knew her. Her dear friend Sam Reed, CEO of Geometric Energy Corporation, is naming the company's next Earth orbit satellite and their Doge 1 payload headed for the moon in October for Amy. So back in August 2024, Coast to Coast hosted an episode featuring an interview with Lou Elizondo, followed by a talk between George Knapp and Eskridge's friend Frank Milberg about her work. And here's a big graphic about anti-gravitic technology. It's pretty wild. It's part of this article. This was apparently on her website. Let's see, was it? Yeah. Okay. Oh, no, this is her paper. Okay. Yeah. And look, Nikola's space drive right there, 1928. It looks like a flying saucer right there. That's pretty wild. So she basically plotted out the hidden history of this technology, allegedly, of what it could have been. Maybe it is. I think it is. I am on the side that this is real. This is being developed. Boeing Phantom Works. That picture right there has been going around the internet for a while. I don't know how true that is. If she was able to confirm that that's actually true, then that's pretty wild. We need testable hypotheses. I think this is back in the early 2010s, so a lot of this stuff was probably not taken that seriously. Yeah, it doesn't look like... Oh, okay, so there's something from 2017 here. Okay. All right. Alongside her father, Richard Eskridge, a retired NASA engineer, she also co-founded Holocron Engineering, a company dedicated to gravity modification research and development. In 1987, alongside her father, Richard H. Eskridge, a retired NASA engineer, she also co-founded Holocron. She aimed to conduct this research openly outside the secretive black world of classified projects, which she believed often absorbed promising scientists and stifled public progress. Eskridge passed away on June 11th, 2022 at the age of 34, with her death officially ruled a suicide by gunshot. However, her passing sparked speculation, retired UK intelligence officer Frank Milberg suggesting she may have been targeted due to her research. In this video, she discusses advanced gravity prototype propulsion projects, which she claimed were melted down and sold for scrap metal. If she is correct, why would advances in gravity physics be shielded from the public? Let's see.
Von Braun was here and we won the space race. We developed the Saturn V here. We built the Saturn V here. We won the space race here in Alabama, whether you've heard of it or not. And I can tell you for a fact, so many prototypes. Only prototype built like this in the world. You turn it on the first time, it works exactly like you thought it would the first time. Great data. You apply for more funding to test it more thoroughly, they cancel it. It goes to NASA divestment. It goes to the auction block. People bid on it, and literally scrap metal vendors win the bid and melt it down for scrap metal and sell it. We could be crazy, crazy, crazy far. We could be on the moons of Jupiter. We could be exploring Pluto that isn't even a planet anymore if we had spent money differently. I can tell you the names of so many NASA scientists that are depressed and they want to kill themselves because they have built prototype after prototype after prototype in Huntsville, Alabama. First in the world, never before seen, worked the first time you turned it on exactly like you thought. And it was canceled and melted down for scrap metal.
So, her work and her father's work apparently were part of what Michael Schellenberger submitted to Congress about this. Born in Huntsville, Amy was raised in Rocket City. She knew the game. She'd seen its apex watching her father's influence in NASA and his meteoric rise in thruster technology. She also saw the dark side of Disneyland, where scientists signed non-disclosure agreements to prevent them from sharing state secrets. Amy watched these men and women chafe against the restraints, the bindings that kept the work at Rocket City from seeing the light of day and improving the lives of everyday people. She needed to be allowed to play the disclosure game before she could win it, or in this case, launch it. She never got the chance. The Institute's focus areas read like a science fiction novel. Quantum computing, gravity modification, metamaterial science, and advanced communications. These weren't merely theoretical pursuits. The stated mission was to bring gravity research into the open, a goal that would put the Institute in direct conflict with decades of government secrecy surrounding advanced propulsion technologies. What made the Institute even more intriguing was its father-daughter leadership structure. Amy's father, Richard, served as CTO and co-founder, bringing with him decades of experience as a retired NASA engineer and scientist. His background included significant work in plasma physics, pulse plasma thrusters, and fusion propulsion systems during his tenure at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. That's pretty interesting. Perhaps most significantly, Richard had been involved in NASA studies of the Pope-Osborn angular momentum synthesis theory, a highly theoretical concept that fundamentally challenges conventional Newtonian physics and is considered by some to provide the foundation for advanced propulsion systems that could revolutionize space travel and energy generation. This was an amateur hour. The Eskridge family brought legitimate scientific credentials and government connections to research areas that typically exist only in the shadows of classified programs. Roadstone Arsenal was formed by NASA, putting into place Werner von Braun as the Marshall Space Flight Director. From there, it sort of gets into the history of Redstone Arsenal itself. And feel free to read the article yourself. We're not going to read that entire thing because it's pages and pages and pages long. It's very well written. Thank you, Escape Velocity, for writing and compiling all that information. But it's interesting that this is all happening in this way, especially as, you know, you have Howard Lutnick talking about how they are thinking about buying out Lockheed Martin because they already, you know, Lockheed Martin already makes 97% of their revenue from the U.S. government. They are basically an arm of the U.S. government. And, you know, you have these other companies like Palantir and Boeing also. But you have this situation where they might even buy out Lockheed. And then you have this paper that comes out. I don't know what this is, Science Direct. The new science of unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon, and you have some pretty heavy hitters in here. You have Kevin Newth. You do have Richard Dolan in here. I think there's a couple other PhDs in here. Ryan Graves, he's an Air Force pilot. And this is, you know, making baby steps to establish this as a legitimate science and a factor that might be in our lives. So where does that put us, Billy? How do you intake all of this?
Oh. So we've gone over a lot here.
Yeah, I just dumped so much on you.
There's a ton here
and you could do whatever you want with
that we can explore. But, you know, some of the main things, like when you were talking about in one of these, like, how is the U.S. government going to put out this information to the
Yeah.
public. Like, even if we did what kind of was mentioned by Amy there, and
Yeah.
it's like we showed the light of day to some of these programs.
Mhm.
You know, how are you going to introduce that to a public that, you know, you've basically kept in the dark
Yeah.
for decades?
Yeah.
And that's a good question.
Mhm.
But I think there's other questions as well that need to be asked beforehand, because there's no way it'll ever happen otherwise. And one of the main questions is, what does this all kind of boil down to? Because it's like there's technology involved, there's governments involved, there's, you know, mass people involved, there's money, incredible amounts of money involved. And really, when you get down to it, it's power and control. And I do not see the forces that be intentionally letting this out of the bag.
Yeah.
Now, there have been things like Joe Rogan said, you know, when quantum computing comes up, there's no way to hide information and blah, you know, and there's some truth to that, but there is quantum encryption, and there's things that you can hide information even still. But there's also different ways of disclosing. Like, I don't think we're going to get much out of disclosure, even if it came.
Mhm.
And even if it did come, and we started getting disclosure on certain technologies, I wouldn't want this necessarily like, don't get me wrong, it would be cool. But it's like, I'd want to also see the, you know, the aliens themselves.
Yeah.
As a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, the technology is cool, but I also want to see the, where are they from? What's their planet like? You know, what's their civilization like? You know, why can they talk to us? You know, how do we communicate with them?
Yeah.
You know, and a whole bunch of, you know, other, you know, story things where it's like, because you can write off certain technologies.
Yeah.
You know, because it's, you know, it's like, oh, you know, any technology that seems super advanced, again, it, you know, looks like magic.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you have a backstory on an alien civilization and you can see them and talk to them, and, you know, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
And I would kind of believe that even more.
So it's interesting that you brought that in particular up, because these things are not going away, Billy. Hang on. Okay, here we go. These mummies from Peru. Now, initially there was a muddying of the waters where, when these mummies initially were announced, there was a bunch of like fakes that went along with it.
Yeah.
But then there's these specimens that, you know, many doctors have x-rayed and examined and come to the conclusion that these things are probably real. So that's what the face looks like, and this is what the fingers look like. Hold on. So they're called tridactyls. They have 3 fingers, and I found this interesting, because if you notice here, and you can't really, you can sort of tell, but I need a higher resolution. It almost looks like scaly, like a scale, like a reptile scale.
Yeah.
Almost. That perhaps these things were, I don't know, like it's the Silurian hypothesis. Have you heard of the Silurian hypothesis? Hold on. Silurian hypothesis. Where is it? Where's that dude? Oh, they don't even show him anymore. They got rid of the picture of him. Oh, that's weird. There used to be a picture you could find of like a humanoid dinosaur.
Okay.
Like clearly it evolved from like a raptor into a more humanoid shape.
Okay.
Called the Silurian hypothesis. So yeah, there's that we may be on the verge of revealing that there has been another side to our planet's history. There's been a big other side that we were not privy to.
So Yeah, and that, I mean, that also brings up other questions too. One of the big things that's being talked about here is whistleblowers.
Yeah.
Should they have safety?
Yeah.
And yes, they should have safety.
Yeah.
There's reasons that, whistleblowers, try to blow the whistle in the first place. And the stuff that we found, disregarding anything about aliens or UAP or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
just the stuff that the whistleblowers have found that we're doing otherwise,
yeah, just like normal corruption
is horrifying.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen some of the newer technologies now that are going around. There was one that a whistleblower brought up that they can use like your TV.
Yeah.
The speakers can also be microphones.
Mm-hmm.
So even when your TV's off,
Mm-hmm.
it's sitting there listening to you.
Yeah.
One of the things that they just showed in China is they can just like in Batman.
Yep.
If you watch
I
the
thought
movie.
you were going to bring this up. Yeah. No, they've had that for a while.
They've had that for a while. But
That's why they showed
worth,
it in the
it's,
Batman.
It's worth bringing up. Just like the Wi-Fi signal in your house that you're using for your phones and your whatever can map you out.
Yeah. They've had that for a while.
Yeah, like your whole living room, they know where you're standing. They
just
know
like that scene from Batman.
Just like that.
Yeah, and it would be worth going over a whole episode like that. But, when it comes to technologies like that, it's like what you were saying before, and I just want to bring this up, that they have ways of hiding information still. You're not wrong. Now that they have AI out there, now that people can access AI, I think there is basically going to be a caste system for information where higher levels and this all relates back to, I think stuff like Epstein. That I think there's a weird connection between Epstein and UFOs and they cannot let that information get out. And they are going to have the real AI algorithms, and we are all going to be stuck down here with these, curated AI algorithms that don't want to touch UFOs and Epstein.
I do want to say this.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I hate the current internet is because it is 100% curated.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like, it does, like, when they were first starting to do it, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
You were when you Google, the reason Google became synonymous with searching for something was because it was, it found what you were looking for.
Yeah.
You type in a couple keywords and it's like, whoa. Like, it read your mind. Like, that is the article I was looking for.
Yep.
And it was great.
Yeah.
Now, that's why it became synonymous, but now it's just a curated...
Well, I do think the AI has made it a little better at that, but it hasn't brought it back to how it was before 2017.
No, and that's... Well, and my point is, like you were saying with the AI is, in the 2017, it was great. Before
that, yeah.
But now it's some kind of weird playground that... Like, you can type in something and it's like, ads, I don't want this, I don't want this isn't relevant to what I'm like, and you have to keep going through. Sometimes what you're looking for isn't there, or it's on page 20.
Yeah.
It's not really worth doing.
Yeah.
Like, yes, and I will admit this new, AI tool, like when you type in something and it's like, hey, did you, and it brings up a little AI box that's like, those are kind of useful.
Yeah.
But what I am worried about is, like you said, we're going to get this curated, AI model, and they're going to have the real ones.
Even this is even happening to ChatGPT. They just went from 4 to 5, and users across the board are reporting this is like a different algorithm.
Yes.
This is way neutered. This is a different tool than we were using. Because I really think that there are subjects that AI is not allowed to be asked. And as they are snipping and trying to curate the branches from those subjects, it's going to keep getting neutered and neutered and neutered. And then you're going to have, like, Apple Playtime computer AI.
Yeah.
And
Like here's your, when you hand a toddler like an iPad.
yeah.
And
Here's your version of AI.
Yeah. And we have a real computer back here.
Yeah.
Press all the buttons you want. It's not going to do anything that that we don't know it's going to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I totally worry about that. But one of the things, and I'll bring this up as an additional point, is I think one of the things that we're going to run into coming in the future, totally speculation, my own comments here, is we're going to have a problem with electricity.
Really?
Yes.
I heard about this, about that's the next, like, you have property rights, and then now there might be electricity rights.
Well, so, in a way, and what it is there are so many regulations now being put around electricity generation that it's hard to like build a new power plant or build for new supply. We've gotten more efficient, but we haven't actually been building like a lot of new power plants.
Yeah.
We've just got, like, if you've noticed, like your refrigerator, it always used to say like energy efficient,
Yeah.
and it's gotten really good. Like it's gotten really good at using the energy that it has now. And between that and the efficiencies we've got out of our current power plants, we haven't really needed all these new ones. However, the game is changing now, and we have all of these large language models and AI that require an insane amount, and data centers that require insane amounts of energy. Because they require it, and we haven't been keeping up, and all of this is for the next 20 years at least, they're going to basically be regulating how much power you get. So, and what that kind of gets at is like, now you look up whatever you want to look up. But now imagine the time that you had on your computer was limited because you just can't afford, all the bills.
Yeah.
It's like electricity is expensive. So you're choosing between, keeping the refrigerator running and maybe, an hour of playtime.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can definitely see something like that happening as a method to control a large amount of people.
Yeah. And, that really brings forth the question of, who actually, owns sovereignty over us. Because say, for example, these defense contractors are simply allowed sway over these highly exotic technologies, and these technologies require immense amounts of power.
Yeah.
Now, what if that needs to continue to be classified, so more and more power needs to be shunted to these things in a classified way?
Yeah.
What if that's happening?
Oh, yeah. I do think certain things like that are happening, and
it's like, how do we sustain a system like that?
Exactly, like how, well, and I think one of the ways that they're going to sustain it is they're going to basically do the same thing that they do with the black budget.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the energy goes over there.
Yeah.
Okay, what's over there?
Yeah.
No, it goes over there.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
That's what you get.
That's all you know. It's going over there.
Yeah.
And no details, no nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they would deal with that.
Yeah. The real question is, how do they keep sustaining this level of secrecy? I mean, do we just go into Soviet collapse at that point?
Sort of, but I think one of the things that leads more to collapse, and I'll get this point out real quick, is I think the U.S., the people of the United States are tired of, like, we've mentioned this on other episodes.
Yeah.
We keep shoving out crazy amounts of money.
Yeah.
Money that we really don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Towards these programs that we're not seeing anything for.
Yeah.
And even and I hate to say it, even certain private, companies like Google and whatnot.
Yeah.
Google is a global company.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It is a global company.
Yeah.
But a lot of these big global come from the United States.
Yeah.
Their funding came from here.
Yeah.
Their ideas came from, here, and, depending on how you look at it, it could be other places, but a lot of it starts here.
Yeah, everybody's got their fingers in our pie.
Everybody does, and it's like, we don't own Google, but it's like there isn't any pay. Like, it almost doesn't seem like there's any benefit for it being developed here.
Yeah.
Like, there's where are we getting the benefit from the large amount of money that we keep spending?
Yes.
And I think that's a big one on the point that you're probably trying to bring up here is like, are we going to collapse, or when is the enough is enough moment? And I think that's really the big factor is like, you can't keep spending and then we not get like a flying car. Like we've been trying for different things, and it's like, where's that future that we've kind of seen?
I guess my real question is what year is it? What time is it? What is the date when the pretenses are completely dropped and defense contractors aren't just going into Afghanistan to defend poppy fields for pharmaceutical companies? Private soldiers found a lithium deposit under your land, and now that is their land because they have more guns than you. When is that moment happen?
I mean, that moment I think already happens. Don't get me wrong.
No, I'm talking about in America. I'm not talking about abroad. I'm talking about private defense contractors have come onto your land with private soldiers, and they're like, these resources are on your property, and now it's ours.
I think they kind of do that already with the government itself. They just hide it under the...
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
So I think that kind of already happens. But, like, no, I think that we are...
When is it clear that we are no longer the United States of America and we are actually just run by a conglomerate, a network, a web, an octopus of defense contractors?
Well, one of the big factors there is, in my opinion, is being able... agency. And it's being able to make your own decisions and say what you want. Basically, the stuff that's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
And when they start, that moment, that split, in my opinion, comes when it's like, it's not safe anymore to say certain things.
Okay.
To do certain things.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you obviously see this happening. It is an overstep.
Yeah.
And if you say anything, bad against it, it's like, you've heard different things, different comedians talk about different ways. It was, Bill, I think it's Bill Burr.
Yeah.
Brings up, they're going to turn on my switch, they're going to turn my chip off.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you're worried about that, yes.
Yeah.
You were for sure under the boot of a organization that is probably not the government, or if it is, it was the government at one point and now it's something else.
Yeah. All right. I think we should call that episode there. And we will see you next time, guys.
Yep.